welcome to Queens Behind the Scenes, where we empower queens to lead, transform, and shine. I'm your host, Charise Beckett, and today we're diving into a conversation about self-love, resilience, and growth. This isn't about that picture perfect social media moments. It's about the real, messy, complicated, and transformative journey of learning to love yourself and own your story. This episode is deeply personal to me. I'll be sharing my journey growing up in West Virginia, navigating spaces where I wasn't always welcomed, becoming a widow at 24, raising two young children, finding love again, building a blended family with 5 kids, and stepping into an executive leadership role at the prime of my career, all by managing my anxiety and staying grounded in who I am and what I want and what I want my life to. My hope is that by sharing my story, you'll feel empowered to reflect on your own journey and embrace every part of yourself and own the space and the skin that you're in. Because queens, you deserve nothing less. So let's dive in. This is a two-part episode. This is just going to be me here talking about my journey, but we are also going to be welcoming on the second part a wonderful guest, Emmy award-winning journalist and author Tracy Mitchell. So I'm really excited to chat with her, but just to really dive into my story about growing up kind of in West Virginia. And let me tell you, it was a mix of beauty and complexity. I lived in a Black neighborhood, but the town itself I grew up in was overwhelmingly white, right? Inside my community, I've always felt seen and loved pretty much, but outside I often felt out of place, like I had to prove my worth in spaces that really just were not meant for me. Even with your own community, sometimes I felt like I didn't belong. People would say things like, I talked white, as if being articulate or excelling academically meant I somehow was less Black. Then there were, the commentary about, my appearance, like being too skinny, like that was something to be ashamed of. And I'm not too skinny now. Anyway, I internalized that so much. For a long time, I questioned who I was supposed to be. But what I've learned is that Blackness is not a monolith, right? We are not one thing and we are not defined by other people's expectations. I was Black enough then and I'm Black enough now. And if you've ever felt like you weren't enough, whether that's in your community, your workplace, or anywhere else, let me remind you, you're enough exactly the way you are. You are 100% enough. So as I got older, I definitely faced another layer of challenges. Society loves to put women, especially Black women, into boxes. I was either the smart one or the pretty one, but like not ever both. And if I leaned into too far to one, I'd hear about that, right? So walking into predominantly white spaces only amplified that tension, whether it was classroom or workplace or social settings. I was constantly kind of navigating environments that weren't designed for me. Those spaces came with unspoken rules like don't be too loud, don't be too confident, dumbing myself down or putting myself down, and definitely don't make people feel uncomfortable by being your full unapologetic self. And even today that stands true. Like that kind of, it doesn't bother me anymore, but I can spot it from a mile away that somebody wants me to conform to be less of me so that it can make them feel better. And that's just never going to ever happen anymore, ever again. Everything about my life really changed when I went to an HBCU. I went to West Virginia State University, which was West Virginia State College when I went there. And at my HBCU, I found myself surrounded by brilliant, beautiful Black women who refused to fit into anyone's boxes. They were unapologetically themselves from different places, and it gave me that permission I didn't even realize I needed to embrace all of those parts of me. I really recall me and my bestie, Erica, we were on a bench outside on the yard because my best friend and her cousin, who were like sisters, we all went to the same school, and my aunt. So we all went to the same college, obviously all different ages and different spaces in life. But I remember me and my best friend were outside on the yard, and we looked over and there was this fly woman on a bench across from us with these bright earrings, and she was wearing these vibrant colors, and she was chilling, hair blowing in the wind. To this day, I think about that and her and saying like, damn, I want to be like that free ass Black woman right there. So big ups to Jamila Price, because that stayed with me, honey. That memory is like seared into my brain, and it's certainly a part of what made me feel comfortable. So thank you for that. And you probably didn't even know that. But that was a transformative experience. It taught me that I didn't have to shrink myself or conform into spaces that weren't built for me. If a space didn't honor who I was, I didn't need to be there. And that mindset has carried me throughout my career and my life. Obviously, it becomes a little bit different when you get older and you're in, workspaces that you financially probably need your job, but you want to be who you are. And there's an intersection there with a conflict. It's very strange, but it's real for a lot of women. When I was 24, my world was really kind of turned upside down. I became a widow. So at a really young age, my husband, my partner, he committed suicide and was gone. And I raised my kids. I had 2 young children at that time because I had my kids when I was really young, but my first set. So, they were 5 and 3. So that was really hard. And grief is a heavy thing. It really is. It doesn't just break your heart. It makes you question everything. There were days when I didn't even think I could, keep going, and days that the weight seemed so heavy. Being a single mom and a provider and a grieving woman, it just felt like too much. On top of that, I was battling anxiety. And that was really when I realized that I didn't just have like a panic attack here and there. Like, I had anxiety disorder that I really actually needed to see someone, right? Because I was having this feeling of like having a heart attack all the time, or like my chest was wide open. I remember there was a time when I was in a grocery store. This happened later on, but just the idea of how kind of anxiety, what it can do to you. I was in a grocery store and I had a horrible anxiety attack. I don't even know what it came from, because sometimes it's usually based in something that happened that is not consciously on my mind at the time. And I got so anxious. I had a cart full of groceries and I left that shit right in the store. I did not care. I walked right up out of that store and had to go sit in my car and collect myself. So that is kind of the heaviness of anxiety and like grief. I had this overwhelming responsibility of holding it all together, made every moment feel like it was like a high wire act. But here's what saved me: my family, my friends, and my faith. The 3 F's saved my life, and myself. Sometimes you do have to come to your own rescue. I read that in a book I'm reading, and I will get back to that book because I want to give the author credit for that. But you do have to, come to your own rescue sometimes. My parents and my siblings and my friends stepped in when I needed them the most. My friends reminded me that I didn't have to carry everything alone, and my faith gave me the strength to believe that there was still a light on the other side of the darkness. I also did seek some therapy, which was a game changer. Therapy taught me that I didn't have to be strong all the time. It showed me that self-love sometimes means asking for the help, right? You save yourself. Sometimes you need to be like, okay, I really, need help. So, and that's not weakness. It's strength. Recognizing what you need is never weakness. It is definitely strength. There was a 7-year period of, definitely I dated, but I was really trying to raise my children. And then 7 years after losing my first husband, I met my beta formed. I'm the man who became my partner in every sense of the word. And together we have built a beautiful life together and a blended family with 5 kids. And again, blending families isn't easy. It takes patience and communication and commitment to love each other. And even on those hard days to love each other, because we had some. I mean, you're coming in. It's not like the new relationship when you're younger. I mean, it is new, but like, when you're younger, there is less at stake, right? There's less at stake, and you got different parenting styles coming in where when you're younger, you're not worried about that. So it definitely is a different situation when you're blending families and you're merging traditions, and you have to make sure every child feels valued and loved, and they are very different kids. And our family is not perfect by any means, but it's ours and it's beautiful and we love it. What makes it work is the love and commitment that we share, not just as a couple, but as like a team. Together we are a team. We never really allow the kids to like split us apart. We stood firm, and I will say I truly knew that my husband was definitely who I was supposed to be with when we went through some of our toughest times, and it made us so much closer. And, you're going to go through tough times when you are kind of blending those families, but also coming out of relationships. Like now you're bringing baggage. Like, you don't have any choice because you have kids from other relationships. You have other relationships that you had. You got baby mamas, and you got, I was a widow and had anxiety. So you're bringing things when you're younger. You're bringing things, but nobody's really recognizing that because we're in love. And not that I wasn't, but you're just thinking love first and not about all the other dynamics that you're bringing into it. And you're young and you're not going to. And it's not just about my immediate family. I wouldn't be here without my friendships and extended family who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I have the best friends and the best close friend group. There are 6 of us, sometimes 7, but like I have this really close friend group and we all have different relationships with each other, but it really saved me. So, my Fab Five will always have my back. So I just am really lucky for that. But they did remind me my worth and poured into me when I needed it the most, when I couldn't pour into myself. Queens, if you're listening, let it be your reminder. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your wins, who remind you of your greatness, and who see you for all of who you are. Those are the people. Those are your people. Those are the people who will carry you through life's hardest moments, because you're going to need that, right? You're going to need that support. Today, kind of crossing all those bridges and weaving all that together. Today, I'm in the prime of my career. I've worked my way into executive leadership, and I'm doing very well, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. But let me be real with you. The challenges don't stop when you get to the top. They just don't. Even now, I'm going to walk into spaces that weren't designed for me, because that's just the way the world is, right? Spaces that were where I'm the only Black woman in the room, where I have to prove over and over and over again that I belong here. But here's the thing. I don't feel the need to conform to anyone. If a space doesn't value me, take it. You can have it, because it's not a space I want to be in anyway. It kind of, I think about folks, and I think about these spaces where, people think you want to be there because it's where they wanted to be, right? If you don't want me, I don't want you. I don't want you. So I don't want to be in no space that is not designed for me. It is not a great feeling. And I'm never going to ever design a space where it excludes people. So that is my effort, to be inclusive in the world. As a Black woman, we often are asked to shrink ourselves. Look, we're big. We come in for the most part. Sometimes we don't even have to say anything. Black women just bring the energy, period. And it's something that I don't ever want to help, because I know I love it. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, but if you just get uncomfortable by my very existence, that's some you shit. That ain't some me shit. So you got to take care of that. But we often are asked to shrink ourselves to fit in environments that weren't built for us for us in mind. They didn't have us in mind when they were thinking of these spaces. But I've learned to stand tall, and I'm taking up the space. But there's space for all of us. But I am definitely taking up the space that's supposed to be mine, because I deserve to be here, and so do you. Success doesn't mean abandoning who you are. It means bringing your full self to the table and refusing to let anybody dim your light. Ever. So looking back, I see how every chapter of my journey has led me to this moment here, from growing up in West Virginia to navigating loss, from building a blended family to stepping into executive leadership. I've learned that self-love is the foundation of it all. Self-love isn't about perfection. It's about grace. It's about embracing your story, even the messy parts. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less. So here is my challenge to you. Take a moment today and reflect on your journey. Write down 3 things you've overcome, 3 things you love about yourself, and 3 things you're excited about for the future. Because when you love yourself first, everything else falls into place. So thank you for obviously spending this time with me today. It's been 15 minutes. Usually episodes are a little bit longer, but I just wanted to really share my story about who I was. To bring this Queens Behind the Scenes to fruition was a big deal for me, because it is something that I really worked through for 3 years, trying to figure out whether or not I was going to do it. And deciding to do it this year was big deal for me, because I didn't want to fail. And fear of failure was one of the things that it's still one of those things I really have to work through, because fear of failure is the biggest thing for me. I'm an overachiever, probably is part of the anxiety and OCD in my life, and probably ADHD that I have. And I'm not saying that to be facetious, but I honestly probably am. I have some of those tendencies. So, and I have a little bit of a cold, so excuse me for that. But, this was a journey, and I'm here, and I want to be able to not even just help other people, but help them recognize that you're enough, and do not ever hesitate to take up space because you deserve that. It's a reminder that every part of your story matters, every chapter, no matter how hard, it has value. Next week, we're going to continue this conversation with Emmy Award-winning journalist Tracy Mitchell. She's an author. She has an incredible story to share. Together, we'll dive in even deeper into resilience, community, and self-love. Until then, queens, remember this: you are worthy, you are resilient, and you are a queen. Take care, and I'll see you next time on Queens Behind the Scenes. Thank you.